Sanibonani Ninjani. Today is Introduction to African Philosophy, PLS1502. And we are doing preparation for an examination which we'll be writing soon. And we'll pick one question and then we'll try to answer. You must know by now that African philosophy is full of essays, and you are likely to write one of those essays. So it's very much important to watch this YouTube channel in order to learn how to answer those essays. Let's not waste time and start with the business of the day. Today we'll just pick one question and try to answer it. We'll answer one essay at a time so that you understand all the essay at the end. Today we'll be discussing the essay 3.3, which says, in this module, we have argued that the term Africa was not a homegrown term, but an imposition from European explorers who were describing the climate experience of this strange geographical space that they came to call Africa. Discuss the term Africa critically. 50 marks. 50 marks to discuss the term Africa. So you must know that if you are discussing for 50 marks, you will have to write a lot of information. You will have to really do a thoroughly research about the information. So let's try to go and write the term to answer the question. I told you that we won't tell you where we get information, but we will show you the information that is needed. It's up to you to contact us so that you know those references. So in this question, it is very clear that we must be answering this type of questions. The question number one is, who named the continent Africa? Who named the continent? We have to be with this question. Who named the continent? And what influenced the name of the continent? In order for us to get into the Africa, we must also answer the last question. What is the connotation today of the term Africa? Okay, so let's try to answer these questions in order for us to discuss critically the term Africa. According to the Shepherd software, it's very up to you to go and look for Shepherd software. The term Africa came into Western use through the Romans. Through the Romans. Let's note down the Romans, who used to name Africa Terra land of Afri. Terra land of Afri. It also suggested that Afri could emerge from a tribe which dwelt in the North Africa in the Carthage area. Greek word Afrique, meaning without a code, also suggested together with the Latin word Africa that it may be Africa. So these words today, Africa, and these words Africa may be suggested that they are named Africa. They are influenced in the naming of Africa. The above paragraphs essentially tell us that the term Africa emerged from the cultural interaction and among the Romans, Greeks, and the people who later called North Africa. So these three generations or groups are the ones that influenced and named Africa. So in Africa, Africa is a description of the Greek and Roman experience of the continent's climate. Continent climate. This implies that the cultural diversity of the continent, aborigines, indigenous, right, didn't play a role in ascertaining the term. The cultural diversity of the continent is not the one that ascertained the term. The colonization played a role of reaffirming this description. So this one never played, it just played a role for the affirmation of a description, but it's not the one that named the Africa, meaning that when we were colonized in Africa, the term Africa was already in named. So it's not through the colonization. The continents indigenous, although they are different in terms of cultures and traditions, this term gave wrong impression like those indigenous Africans were one ethical group that have a single common culture. Single common culture. It means that whether we are Nigerians, Zimbabweans, Shona, Yoruba, Zulu, Venda, it gives us impression like we are from the ethical group that have a single common culture, like our culture is a single common. Another issue is that the term Africa merely speaks about the historical experience of the Western Europeans than continents indigenous. So it speaks mostly about how their experience, the Westerner experience on the continent than us as a African indigenous. These people's history were not learned adequately. Colonization played a big role in eroding cultures and customs of these inhabitants, resulting in the term Africa as means people who depend on Europeans' ideas, culture, custom, and religion. So this is now the new term of Africa. The new term of Africa is seen as the people who depend on Europeans' ideas, culture, custom, and religion. And this influence is still existing even today. Many people depend on the Europeans' ideas, culture, custom, and religion. Whatever they do in Europeans, people want to copy and paste. Whatever they dress, whatever their style, people always wanted to beat them. People in Africa always want to beat them. To set an example, continents indigenous were given Christian Bibles. Eventually, they chose the religion and eroded theirs. This is a clear example. We know about the missionaries. Missionaries are the one who came with the Christian Bibles, and people were given, but boom, in South Africa, they had no land, but the same people who came with the Bible now owns the land. So it is very clear that the religion of the Christianity were not instigated by the indigenous African, but were the reception because it was imposed to us. Their ways were changed with European customs. Another example, Harry M. Stanley regarded Africa as dark continent. If you remember Harry Stanley, this man, Harry Stanley, he regarded Africa as a dark continent. Even today, Europeans people perceive Africa as inferior and not intelligent, Sorry, guys, but this is philosophy, and we are articulating what the philosophy is all about. So don't have a emotion on that. Philosophy it has stated the truth, and philosophy must be clear. The big problem is pertaining to historiography, the writings and presentation of history. The very larger extent remains because the writers were subjected to their interest and standard objectivity was not allowed. It is clear that those people who are called Africans, there's a distortion and disfigurement of their image and identity. This led us to ask ourselves a question. Is there an African philosophy? Can there be an African philosophy? According to the Tenderloin Online, which I visited, until the present, there has been no comprehensive publication on the history of philosophy in sub-Saharan Africa. Did the development of Africa philosophical thought begin after the Second World War, in period when African countries were gradually winning their independence? African history was seen as European history, and that was of the Oliver I visited. You must be able to do the research. I have those things, but you must know that you contact us directly. if you want more information about this. Names and naming of the African countries still not reflect the identity of Africa. Many countries change names after independence. Example, Tanganyika was named Tanzania. According to etymology from Wikipedia, which I visited, Tanzania was created as climbed compound of the names of the two states that are unified to create the country, Tanganyika and Zanzibar. Zanzibar. This distinct clear that many African countries were not named following their custom, but conflict which instigated by colonization. Some were named for sacrificing peace among them. The identity of the countries could not be established because of suffering from colonization, which betrayed people within the country. Other continents regarded Africa as a single ethical group but not distinct language. Due to Africa term, continental languages are not considered anyway. Those that are called Africans speak mainly European languages as their medium languages. For example, in South Africa, we only know history of arriving of Jan van Riebeeck in 1601. Before that, we have no history. So the name South Africa could be influenced by geographical area, not based on the identity of the country. The term Africa influenced the renaming of South Africa with the influence of British colonization. That's why many tribes of South Africa are not sure of their origin. Yes, and that's the truth. We gave example by South Africa because it's called South Africa, but it's not in the indigenous language, which some Zulu people prefer to say Mzansi, but still, was it called Mzansi? Is KZN was it called KwaZulu? Was it called KwaZulu, or it was called KwaZulu after Shaka Zulu? It's still a big problem because we do not know before what happened before Shaka Zulu. And the history of Shaka Zulu still is not the history that we can also rely on it, because I think that it was written by some white people with an influence. It's not written by black people. So we do not know whether the Shaka Zulu history is real or is based on the European experience or based on the Zulu people who them call Zulu people. Because once you call yourself a Zulu person, you only know the history from Shaka Zulu, but we do not know before. The term Zulu is still the term that is controversial because we do not know who named Zulu and why are they called Zulu. We don't know who named them Venda, and we don't know why they are Vendas. Even the culture outfit that they wear is still controversial because we have never seen any companies that manufacture those. For example, in Venda, they wear what we call Mingwenda. Let me show you what they wear. In Venda, this is called Mingwenda. Mingwenda, this one that I'm showing you now, is called Mingwenda. But still, this outfit is called Mingwenda, but I have never seen in Venda the manufacturing company which manufactured this thing. Even the people of Venda started to manufacture this thing now. It is really clear that this Mingwenda has been manufactured somewhere, and this outfit was given to the Venda people by white people to differentiate them from Zulu, to differentiate them from Xhosa. But it's still controversial because there are a group of people who were not given the cultural outfit. For example, the Sotho people were not given the cultural outfit. However, because of the influence of the modern life in the Western, they believe that Dikubo, the one that people used to have, Dikubo, is part of their culture, which was just be given by white people. Then they loved Dikubo, they started to share Dikubo, which is other, and they make it their culture. Now they go around wearing Dikubo, symbolizing their culture, which Dikubo is not their culture, because nobody ever innovated Dikubo in Sotho culture. And that's the truth. Nobody ever invented many of the things that they were Zulu. So they wear that thing so that they can differentiate themselves from other people, so that the people, white people, can know why white people, they don't have their cultural outfit. If it is true, why colors, they don't have their cultural outfit? If it is the case, then now we know that the existence of their cultural outfit were given to their cultures so that they can be differentiated from others. Yeah, but remember, this is not a politic. This is just a. To more than that, this was proved by the Biancolo's approach. And Biancolo approach is very much important when we're dealing with the Africa, because it really shows what they were telling you about. So in the Biancolo, Levi Bra, this one, a man called Levi Bra, he described the African as a savage and the Western as a civilized. Biancolo admit that the division between savage and civilized was the dominant Western paradigm in understanding the other. The Africans were seen as savage and the Westerners as civilized. The savage African was seen as unable to have individual genius, whereas the civilized Westerner was capable of possessing individual genius. We were talking about those things about the African historical when we say that it's a history based on what the Westerner feels and how their experience in Africa. Then when we're talking about the culture that we're talking about, Levi Bra, the same guy, came up with the pre-logical and logical. This one. He described those people's material culture and way of life as a manifestation of pre-logical mentality, a mentality which does not have a logical character. Instead, it is a mentality which simply associates one thing with another, even when associations are logical impossible. This mentality is thus the mentality of participation in being. It is incapable of standing back and looking logical at being from the distance. According to Levi Bra, it is precisely the indifference to logic of the undeveloped people, their submission of the law of participation, which must now be used as the key to understanding these people. So this is what we were talking about when we say that the outfits were manufactured by the Westerners. It's a person like a Levi Bra who manufactured, because those guys believe that our cultural were pre-logical and theirs were logical. And then we also have a perceptual versus conceptual. Then, according to this guy, the same Levi-Strauss said that the primitive mind was magical, whereas that of the civilized Westerners was scientific. So according to him, our minds was magical, and those of the Westerners were scientific. And when we are still talking about the African philosophy, we are still answering that question, we must also base on Osuagu. Osuagu came with the term the Ethno-African, the Lego-African, the Geotemporal African, and the Techno-African. He described the Techno-African as those Africans who become an African philosopher by interest or preoccupation, enterprise, research, interest, doctrine, undertaken, or produced. Those are the people that can be from outside who just come here because they have an interest in researching Africa philosophy. The legal African are those that qualifies and express trait, also, or issue which becomes an African by virtue of civil, academic law which empowers or manages them. Like, for example, people who are studying LLB, they become their ASO because they have to write the journals and all those stuff. Then we have a geotemporal Africans, which qualifies as the African space and time within which African philosophy is typical occurring. The African geotemporality is by immediate African placement within the African continent. And then we have Ethno-African, which identifies an African ASO or ASOs by origin, nature, or by birth, saying that this is a Venda man, he's writing a Venda, this is a Zulu man, then he's been writing things of the Zulu. On the other side, according to Maasrui, We have Africans of the blood, who is us, Venda, Zulu, Sotho, or Africans of the soil, who is still the people from different areas who then come and occupy the places. We have Africans of both the blood and the soil. Soil means those that have come from other areas and now they've settled here and they're settling with them. For example, Indians settling with Zulus, Vendas settling with Indians, Sotho settling with Indians, Pedi settling with Indians, and others are white people and all. This is Africans of both the blood and the soil. And Africans of the soil by adoption. Adoption are those that are adopted from other areas and they come to be with us. We have them and there are many here, just that we cannot name them or talk about them. In conclusion, as you can see, we have tried to answer the question, the term Africa, we critically, and then we define the African philosophy and all those stuff. We have tried for you so that you know what to answer, and you must know that this question needs more research and you have to do a lot of research. This is an ongoing struggle which you have to invest more on it to know. Then next time we'll be talking about Mogobe, Remos, and then we'll be talking about Odera, Choruka, then we'll be talking about the African philosophy of Kwame Gyekye. We will explain all those so that when you go to the examination, you will be well informed. Thank you very much for watching. And remember, if you are not understanding, you can hit us directly. If you want a reference, you can hit us directly for that. Thank you very much.